Over 2.5 millennia ago, Siddhartha Gautama delivered his seminal discourses, the sermons or suttas, not as rigid dogmas, but as practical maps for human liberation from dukkha, dissatisfaction/suffering. Today, these ancient texts encounter a radically transformed world. How do traditional monastics, critical scholars, secular practitioners, and modern youth interpret these timeless words? Let us listen in.
I honestly feel like my brain is constantly short-circuiting. Between checking my notifications, worrying about the climate crisis, and trying to figure out a career path in a volatile economy, I'm exhausted. When I read about the Buddha talking about life as dukkha, it isn't depressing, it's oddly validating. Someone thousands of years ago accurately diagnosed the exact mental trap I'm sitting in right now.
Kai, what you are experiencing is precisely what the Buddha addressed in the Fire Sermon, Adittapariyaya Sutta, where he claimed that all is burning with the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, kindled by sensory overload. In the ancient world, that overload was sensory. Today, it is mediated through algorithms and endless data streams.
The mechanism has not changed, modern scholar. The eye sees a form, the ear hears a sound, the mind conceptualizes an alert, and immediately, tanha, craving or reactivity, arises. We want more likes, more safety, more distraction, or we push away what we hate. The Buddha's sermon offers the exact same remedy: sati, mindfulness, and sampajana, clear comprehension. Stop feeding the fire.
With all due respect, Bant, many of us in the modern West, and younger generations globally, cannot swallow the traditional cosmology of literal rebirth, cosmic realms, and deva entities found in the Pali Canon. This is where secular Buddhism steps in. As Stephen Batchelor argues in After Buddhism, the Dhamma is not something to be believed as a metaphysical religion, but something to be done as an existential practice for human flourishing.
If you strip the tree of its roots, Sam, how long will the leaves stay green? The ancient sermons are embedded within a vast framework of moral causation, karma, and continuity of consciousness. If you reduce the Buddha to a protocognitive behavioral therapist, you miss the radical transcendence of the path. You risk turning the Dhamma into a mere lifestyle accessory for stressed-out consumers.
This tension is precisely what defines Buddhism in the modern world. Academic research shows a fascinating split. Monastic lineages emphasize preservation and transmission across generations. Meanwhile, secular Buddhists, drawing heavily on scientific validation, such as Robert Wright's Why Buddhism is True or neuroscientific studies on meditation like those cited in Buddha's Brain, reframe the teachings through evolutionary psychology. They argue that the Buddha was history's first empirical psychologist.
As a young person, I don't care much about the metaphysical debates. What matters to me is, does this practice help me stop hating myself when I look in the mirror? Does it help me show up for social justice without burning out? If the monastic tradition offers deep peace, and secular framing makes it accessible without demanding blind faith, I want to borrow from both.
As youth voices merge with global movements, ranging from Thich Nhat Hanh's engaged Buddhism to climate activism, the Buddha's concept of pratitya samuppada, dependent origination or interdependence, has taken center stage.
Interdependence is our generation's core worldview, even if people don't use the Sanskrit term. We understand that our fast fashion choices affect garment workers overseas, that our carbon footprint alters ecosystems, and that our mental health is tied to community structures. When the Buddha taught that nothing exists independently, he was describing modern ecology centuries before the term was coined. And that shifts meditation from an isolating, self-absorbed exercise, just closing your eyes to feel relaxed, into a form of mindful solidarity. As Noah Levine points out in The Heart of the Revolution, inner awakening and outer revolution go hand in hand. You cannot dismantle systemic suffering outside if you are cultivating hatred and greed inside.
On this point, we are entirely aligned. The Buddha taught the Kalyana Maitreta the importance of noble spiritual friendship and community. Compassion, karuna, and loving kindness, metta, are not passive sentiments. They are active forces that dissolve the illusion of a separate ego. Whether you sit in a monastery in Thailand or study in a university in New York, The end of suffering requires radical unselfishness.
To synthesize our dialogue, the modern world acts as a stress test for ancient wisdom. 1. The monastic tradition preserves the depth, meditative maps, and ethical anchor, sila, without which the practice dissolves into pop psychology. 2. Scholars and secular Buddhists translate these texts into empirical, non-dogmatic frameworks that appeal to a scientifically literate youth culture. 3. The youth voice injects urgency, driving the teachings out of quiet meditation halls and onto the front lines of ecological, social, and mental health crises.
As we reach the conclusion of this topic exploration, the dialogue between the Buddha's ancient sermons and contemporary voices reveals a living tradition. The voice of Siddhartha Gautama is not a relic preserved in amber. It is a dynamic, breathing dialogue answering humanity's perennial question. How do we wake up before the house burns down? Thanks for listening. See you next video.